This past Sunday, after an incredible worship service in which we celebrated faith and confirmation alive, a small but mighty group gathered in our fellowship hall for Sleep In Sunday. Now, I know there are many of you here in our congregation saying, "Well, Pastor Brad, what is Sleep In Sunday?" Every month to 6 weeks, we will have an intergenerational activity downstairs in the fellowship hall, in which people are invited to come together to learn, to serve, to be community. And this last week we talked about faith, about what it means for us to affirm or proclaim our faith when we look to God who is Creator, when we look to the life and the witness of Jesus, the breath, the wonder of Holy Spirit, the ways that we are called to respond in giving thanks. And as we closed our time together, we invited small groups to look for their favorite Bible verse, their favorite Bible passage, particularly those that celebrated or looked to the life of Jesus and what that meant. Interestingly, one of our groups selected our gospel text for today. This incredible story of Jesus being away and coming back to Mary and Martha and Lazarus, encountering this story of where Martha and Mary, the sisters, greet him, heartbroken, distraught, and in tears, their brother having died and having been laid in a tomb. We asked this particular group why they had selected this story as their favorite. Now, each person in that group had their own answer. One was the idea of resurrection or new life breaking in and breaking into our lives. One person said they liked Jesus and his humanity. They liked that he cried. Others began to talk about this story and what it means when we encounter it, when we wrestle with it, when it becomes real, so real for us. And I think one of the things that makes it powerful for me is that it's a story we're often not good at talking about, especially in church, which is unfortunate because we have so much to say. You see, as we come into this story, we encounter the sisters, Mary and Martha, and imagine the emotion behind their probing, their pushing, their challenging of Jesus. Lord, if you would have been here, if you would have been here, he would not have died. How many of us have bumped up against that question? And whether it is a miscarriage that an individual or a couple has experienced, or the loss of a child or young adult in your midst, whether it is a spouse or partner whose life has been claimed by cancer or heart attack, or whether it is a sibling or an aging parent where perhaps it is still expected, but nonetheless so hard. And we sit in that place with Mary and Martha and say, "Oh God, if you were really here, this wouldn't have happened. Or it wouldn't have happened in this way. Why couldn't you have shown up here and now?" The anguish, the hurt, the pain. And we wrestle with what that means in our lives. And at church, we so often are given a happily ever after scenario of off to heaven. God picks some flowers every day. There's another angel singing in God's chorus. And we don't necessarily make room for this anguish and this pain that we feel. if we are going to be the church alive and well, we need to hear the voices of these sisters in our midst and unleash our own hurt and pain. Whether it is something we've experienced recently, or perhaps even decades ago, that comes up and we allow ourselves to cry out, God, why? Why couldn't you be here? Why couldn't we have just one more day, one more week, one more year? Why? And then it's important for us to journey. To journey with that anger, that hurt, that anguish, that frustration, and to walk with the townsfolk as a community. And that's significant, that this isn't a go it on your own, get lost out there sort of experience. This is journeying with the community to that place of death, where the body is laid, where it's tangible. And standing there and laying ourselves bare. And Jesus becomes an incredible example of that. Especially for those who like to put Jesus up here and have that high Christology, it's good to have him stoop low. Jesus began to weep. Or, as most of us were probably taught, the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. That Jesus joins the anguish, that he lays himself bare in that moment, and he weeps alongside the townfolk for the love of a friend. Someone that he cares so deeply about. And I think significantly, the thing we need to hear today is that Jesus continues to weep with us. Wherever death enters into our lives, Jesus is there standing with us, holding us close, and weeping. Pouring out. Whether it is a loved one or whether we are hearing the news reports of another young black man dying in the street, or an immigrant crossing over the desert and being lost to the wind and the heat, or a child lost in the hospital as the doctors try to revive and give life. That Jesus draws close in that moment of death, and with us outpours the tears. Jesus weeps. Not just past tense. And that is one thing that I love about the change in this Bible verse from Jesus wept to Jesus began to weep, is that it's a continuing process. And Jesus continues to weep with us here and now, today. But as becomes the story of this incredible resurrection of Lazarus, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop with being held up by anguish or even our tears and emotion, but rather there is a point at which new life is ushered in. There is the moment at which Jesus says, "Roll back the stone." Roll back the stone. Something is going to happen here. And we know that this becomes a precursor to Jesus' own life and witness in the cross, the tomb, and the resurrection, the new life breaking forth. But in this moment, it is about the people in the world and the people that he is close to. And before they can even get to rolling back the stone, we get Martha. Good old Martha. Always the common sense one. And she says, "Oh, Jesus, not today. He has been dead 4 days. What a stench." Another incredible verse, especially in the King James Bible, "He stinketh." And here we have Jesus saying, beyond the stench of death, new life is going to break in. No matter what you have seen or experienced, the promise is going to overcome that. And he calls out. He calls out Lazarus from the tomb, asking him to come into this world again, into new life. And he comes out. An incredible witness and powerful understanding of new life breaking in. I ask us to think about what does it mean in our life to have the stone rolled away. To have Jesus call out and usher forth from the grave new life. Where is the place in your heart, in your life, that things seem shut down, cut off, dead? And how is Jesus' voice resounding in your life to roll back that tomb, that stone? How is Jesus calling out to us in this church to roll back this stone and to see new life breaking in here and now? In how we engage the community and how we work together as a people of God. As we recognize God's diversity in this corner and in this place. As we honor and celebrate those who have gone before us. Yesterday, we honored one of the saints of this community. Some of you used to call her Grandma Eunice. And there was Grandpa Al, her beloved husband. And here in this space, we lifted up Eunice and her life and witness. 96 years, baptized in the old Sunday school before the church was organized, confirmed in this church. Wouldn't it be incredible to think about the ways that over the course of the 96 years of her life, she saw the tomb changed here at Calvary and the stone rolled away. The way that Jesus ushered in new life in the face of death. An incredible, incredible witness. The one that I always am struggling with, though, in this text is poor Lazarus. There was a Sunday school student who went up to a pastor and said, "So, Lazarus was dead, right?" The pastor said, "Yeah, very dead. Do you think he was mad?" And the pastor said, "Well, what do you mean? Do I think Lazarus was mad?" "Well, he was in heaven. And you're telling me that's the best place, right? And then all of a sudden Jesus is telling him to get back here? Do you think he really wanted to come back?" I think it's a good question for us to ask. Kind of the curse of Lazarus is that he has to die twice. And yet we know that in the grand story, it is a narrative that ushers in life and promise. And it transforms community. I think that's the piece with Lazarus that I come back to, is he has two sisters who at this point, we are told, are not married. Who in that particular context would have been left on their own. Perhaps struggling. And so by raising Lazarus, their family could go on and life could be made known. They wouldn't have to be prostitutes, which happened oftentimes, sell everything they had and scrape by for the rest of their lives. But rather, by this moment of resurrection, new life can be ushered in. And I think of the joy of Lazarus being able to know that his sisters, his family, is cared for. And with that glimpse of what is beyond, the idea of a certainty with God holding us fast, laying claim to our lives. Now we can get into lots of questions about what that other looks like. Yesterday, after the funeral, I had a parent with 2 young children who wanted to come up and talk about heaven and spirit. And think through what this means with great-grandma going off to be with God. It gives us a great sense of mystery. And if there's one thing I hope you hold on to, it is that deep sense of mystery of what is beyond. For me, I know. I feel so certain there is something beyond. But I can tell you for certain, I have absolutely no idea what that looks like. And for that, I say, thank God. And whether you image light, love, compassion, energy, music that dances through the soul, the incredible wonder that we are held fast here and into the ages of ages, that God does not let us go, but continues to bring forth new life, to resurrect us here and into forever. An incredible witness to hold fast to. Which draws us back to today and the communities. Lazarus has seen that glimpse of heaven. He comes back to care, to be with his family and friends. And yet, there are still these cords that have him bound. The cords of death. The cloth, the burial cloth. Tying him up, keeping him in place. And Jesus turns to the community and says, go and unbind him. What is our role today to people who are at a loss and hurting? People who are grieving and mourning? People who are sick or in peril? People who are struggling with what it means to have faith? People who look at what is happening in the world and wrestle with violence, whether it's in their home, across the street, or on the other side of the world. And what does it mean for Jesus to speak that word to us today? To say, go and unbind him. Are we willing and ready to be part of this witness of new life, breaking in here and now? Jesus has done the hard part. Now all we have to do is go and tear away these cords, these bonds of death, and set the person free. Set the community free. But you know what? He stinks. Do we want to get that close? Do we want to get that close to death? Do we want to get our hands dirty when we know that the Jewish custom said that if death was there, the shroud of death, and you touched it, you got close, you were unclean? So Jesus is telling us here and now, on this All Saints' Day, with the Holy One, the hosts who have gone before us, to get out there and get our hands dirty. To destroy the bonds of death one by one, to break through the cords that would bind, and whether that is grief or whether that is systemic racism, whether it's homophobia, that we get out there and we do this hard work for the sake of resurrection. An incredible witness, and this is God breaking in, claiming us here and now. And this is something that takes place over the centuries, a story, a refrain that goes on and on. As we remember the witness of the people who have gone before us. It was on Friday that many of us on Facebook or in notes remembered Eric Paulsrud. It was on Thursday night that I know some in our congregation heard the news of what had happened with a person of interest in the Jacob Wetterling case. And in that moment, you caught a breath of a cord being broken away, of a tie being stripped. There are all of these ways in which, year after year, we are called to break free of death and to proclaim new life. And to join with the saints who have gone before us and the saints who are here with us now. And look to God's hope breaking in. Today. This very day. And into the ages of ages. That all may know hope and life. And beyond the anger, the despair, and the deep sadness, might find ourselves broken open again. The stone rolled away. That the unbinding may occur. And that peace, that promise of God, of the New Jerusalem, the Shalom, becomes manifest. Here and now. In thin places. In wonder and in mystery. Thanks be to God.